Hi, and welcome to an explanation of analytical method number 4, asking so what. Now this is an important method, even if it's a very flexible method. Well, maybe precisely because it's a very flexible method. It can allow us to, for instance, start off our analysis of something. If we're stuck, if we're looking at a text, if we're trying to brainstorm, using this method can help us take the first couple of steps in some direction that'll hopefully get us going. And it can also be like the capstone asking so what. It can be the kind of final thing that you do to take information that you've already produced through analysis and figure out why it's important. Figure out why you did all that thinking in the first place. What makes your conclusion important? And as it's so flexible, you can use a lot of, it can kind of piggyback on a lot of other different analytical methods. You can ask so what in a way that kind of draws out implicit meanings of things and makes them explicit. You can ask so what to say, all right, so what is going on during this time period? We're going to put things in their historical context. You can ask so what to say, well, so what? So what is this information connected to? Does it have similarities or differences with other types of things? Is it part of some kind of strand, say, of similar ideas? So there are a lot of different meanings that so what can have, and it really just depends on the context in which you ask it. So let's take a look at asking so what in action. Let's try it on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. All right, well, looking at that section, we can see that it takes a 2/3 vote of both houses of Congress to allow people who left the U.S. government in 1861 to hold office again. And here where we ask so what, we're essentially asking, well, okay, what does that mean in the context of the way the federal government was the way that the different factions of the different parties, how much power they had within the federal government. And so we get the idea that basically radical Republicans are going to have veto power on the political careers of any ex-secessionists. And so now we ask, so what again? And here the so what is kind of just asking, all right, well, what's the logical extension of what we just said? And it turns out that it seems like the congressional Republicans are trying to rig the post-war political balance so they don't have to share any power. And when we ask, so what about then we're really asking, well, why? Why do they need to not share power with anyone? And we get the idea that maybe they don't trust anyone except themselves. And all right, we ask so what to that, and at any of these branches, at any of these so whats, we could be branching out in multiple directions. But this so what is potentially more of an attempt to put this to see what similarities and differences I can find between the way the radical Republicans treated different types of other leaders. And it looks like from this that they don't trust the ex-secessionists. It looks like they don't trust Johnson. And so this might point us towards, all right, for our next bit of analysis, well, maybe let's see if we can find out any other groups that the radical Republicans do seem to trust. And this might send us off into another branch of exploration. The point is that asking so what in this manner can turn what could be a simple, boring, static, unuseful list. Figuring out the differences and similarities of, say, the 14th Amendment to parts of President Johnson's plan for Reconstruction. Like, okay, great, there's, they have some things in common, they have some things that are dissimilar. Well, okay. But this takes that static list and helps turn it into a more dynamic, evolving set of ideas. You don't want, when you're writing an essay, when you're building up an argument, you don't want that argument to be unchanged by its exposure to evidence and to the facts over the course of your analysis. It's good to have a thesis that grows as you throw more evidence at it and see how that thesis reacts. And very often, as you're going through different sources, different kind of contributors to your ideas, it makes sense to ask, so what, as you go along, as you explore each particular source. Not only so that the person who's reading you can follow along with your thinking process, but also so that your thinking process, once again, is not static, so that it grows as your paper moves on. So that is asking so what in a nutshell. I hope you have a good time with it.